All right, so for the Olympic lifts, I'm going to do a hang power clean plus a hang split clean. Split position feels really shitty right now, so guess it is what it is. But after this, front squat, top set of 3 to 4, followed by a giant set, close grip bench press, snatch grip deadlift. That's the plan. I'll find some questions to answer throughout this video. I'm just working up to a challenging or semi-heavy 1+1. I want the bar to move well because I want to save my legs for the front squats because I want to go heavy on the front squats. But that split position felt so bad for all these warm-ups. So, I mean, if I can get up to 140, I don't think I'm going to be able to hit 140 today, but that would be great. This is 110 right now. Maybe I'll just cut myself off at 130 and do maybe 135 and just do a few like hard working sets there for 1+1. That one was much better. I'll go to 120. The awkward thing when you do the split cleans is the timing of the feet coming down and when the bar crashes, when you actually receive the bar. It's really hard to time that up because you're used to that bilateral squared up stance of boom. So when you split your feet, the timing gets off. And I haven't been jerking because I can't jerk in the winter because my ceiling's too low, so I haven't been doing any split stuff. No split snatches. Okay, 130 here. Go up to 135, maybe stop at 135 and hit a few sets there. I'm just doing a 1+1. All right, so I'm going to answer this question because it comes up all the time, even though I kind of answer it like indirectly all the time. But what exercises are good for combat sports? So I'm going to speak to this with full transparency. I've never participated in any sort of combat sport myself, so I have no experience with it. I've never coached or trained anybody that participates in combat sports, so I'll throw that out there right now. So there could be something that I'm missing. I'm totally open to that, to the fact that I may have a blind spot somewhere. But exercises for combat sports. So Mark Ripito has this great clip on Instagram where he like outlines it very articulately. Basically, he says. He's talking about baseball. So he says, do you get strong for baseball or do you just get strong? Well, you just get strong. There's only strong. And I would say the same goes for combat sports. You just get strong. Now, sure, there may be some special strength characteristics that combat sports have, but those special strength characteristics are going to come, they're going to develop through practicing combat sports, whether it's wrestling, jiu-jitsu, boxing, whatever those characteristics are, you're going to train them and express them and demonstrate them by way of practice and by way of actually participating in the combat sport that you're participating in. So if you want to get strong for combat sports, I would do the exact same exercises as I would program for anybody else, regardless of the sport that they're playing. So I would program a lot of barbell work. I would follow these 3 guidelines. Choose exercises that train a large amount of muscle mass. Choose exercises that train that muscle mass through a greatest effective range of motion. And choose exercises that are conducive to heavy loading and long progressive loading over the course of a long period of time. So like, can you continuously add weight over the course of a time? Is there a certain point, if there's a certain point where you can't really add weight to the exercise, something like a lateral raise, like people stop adding weight once they get to like 35 pounds, 40 pounds, because you can't get any heavier than that just due to like the moment arm, the leverages of a lateral raise. But a lot of barbell exercises like squats, presses, pulls, you can continuously add weight over the course of years and years and years. So that's the kind of exercises that I would program. Now, I think you probably could make the case for something like Zerchers, having something like in the crooks of your elbows, getting into a rounded back, because you're going to be in those compromised positions in something like wrestling all the time. So I could see the case that you're going to emphasize something like a Zercher deadlift, a Jefferson curl, a Zercher squat, anything like that. I could see you making the case and making a good case for something like that over like just a normal front squat or a back squat or something like that. So that's my answer. Those are the exercises that I would use for combat sports. I would do a lot of Olympic lifting because in combat sports like wrestling, there's a lot of like, you have to have this really quick impulse where you're flipping somebody over. I don't think there's anything you can do in the weight room that's going to, for lack of a better term, simulate that or mimic that better than Olympic lifts when you get the bar into your hip and you quickly extend those hips to pop that barbell up. So yeah, that's my answer to the question. 135 in the bar. All right, let's move this one well. Another set at 135. Another question I'm asked is about hook gripping, and hook gripping Olympic lifts, hook gripping RDLs, hook gripping deadlifts. Do I hook grip? I'm not hook gripping right now. A lot of times when I'm doing complexes like this, well, this is only 2 reps, but a lot of times when I'm doing high rep complexes, I kind of use that opportunity to train my grip strength. I've talked about that before. That's like the best time to train grip strength in my opinion. So I don't do hook grips on like a lot of high rep Olympic lifting complexes. Unless I'm doing like a set of 5, like if I'm doing a 3-position clean and I'm doing it like 2 rounds, so above the knee, below the knee from the floor, above the knee, below the knee from the floor, and I'm doing like 2 rounds, so that's a set of 6. If my grip starts to get tired on like rep 4 or rep 5, then I'll hook grip for the final couple of reps, but I usually wait till I have to hook grip before I hook grip on something like that. But anytime I'm doing a heavy Olympic lift for like a set of 2, not today, because I'm not really going that heavy, then I will hook grip. Never hook grip on deadlifts because I'm a pussy. Never hook grip on RDLs because I'm a pussy. Never hook grip on dumbbell rows. I always just strap up for those. I don't really see the purpose of hook gripping on something like that. All right, let's move on to front squats. All right, almost ready for my working set of front squats. Gonna hit a single at 405 to figure out what I want with my top set of 3 to 4 reps. So I moved that at 0.51. So now I gotta be smart about this jump here. I'm thinking I'm gonna go somewhere between 415 and 420 for a triple, maybe 4 reps. Okay, so I decided on 416 pounds. So these little blues are half pounds here. So 415 plus half and half, so 416. Spot, that last rep was 0.32 meters per second, so good spot to call it. I was like, that's a 1 RIR basically for front squat. What is my favorite deadlift accessory? You're looking at it, man. For front squats, you're probably asking for like a pause deadlift or a deficit deadlift or something like that, but honestly, I think front squats are highly overrated to improve your deadlift. But beyond that, yeah, pause deadlift, deficit deadlift, snatch grip deadlift, any other sort of pull from the ground, I think is a really appropriate accessory for improving your deadlift. But yeah, if I were to choose my favorite, I'm not going to call front squat my favorite. My favorite is probably going to be a paused or a deficit deadlift. What do I think when people say they don't do freestanding rows because of the fatigue it places on the erectors, so they always use chest support? I think that's a totally like valid reason to not do freestanding rows sometimes for some people. Like if you're a really strong guy and like if you're doing Pendlay rows with 315 plus, that is a ton of fatigue on the lower back to get your upper, like to train your pulling movements. So if you're like a weakling, like a Pendlay row is probably way better than any sort of chest supported row because of the systemic load. But if you're like a really strong person, I think it's a totally fair thing, totally like validated approach to training. I wouldn't totally skip that stuff. Even if you're someone who's like as strong as like Ronnie Coleman or somebody like that, I would still do some of it, but to include more chest supported work to spare some of your lower back and to spare even your hamstrings and your glutes a little bit, because that's a lot of load to support with your lower back and your posterior chain if you're doing barbell rows, Pendlay rows. But it really only matters if you're that strong and you're moving a lot of weight. So I think it's valid. Dumbass loaded too much weight on one side. Do I have any specific exercises to strengthen the lower back? I mean, outside of just like normal strength training, you're looking for something to kind of target the lower back without working other musculature. Yeah, sure. I guess good mornings. Good mornings would probably be my number one thing. Back extensions, hypers. I guess those would be the things I would focus on. Back extension, isometrics with load is great too. I guess I don't really know exactly what you're looking for, but those would be some exercises that come to mind. Would love to hear your thoughts on more isolation or machine-based training for athletes. Obviously doesn't work in a college setting due to equipment. Yeah, it kind of goes back to what I said earlier about if you're really strong. If you're already really strong, the more appropriate I think machines are, because when you're not as strong, you want to load the entire skeletal system. So if you want to like do more isolation work when you're really strong, I think it's totally valid. I mean, it's valid for anybody, but it works better for someone who's really strong. The cons of it, you're just not loading the entire body as well as you would with like a barbell back squat if you wanted to do something like a leg extension where you're isolating the quads. But it's definitely, there's nothing wrong with doing it. I don't do a lot of that stuff just because I don't have access for it. But like that's all icing on the cake to me for the most part. Like if you want to get strong, you want to get big, do the compound movements, do them heavy, do them frequently, do them through large ranges of motion. Progressively load them, and then you're going to get to a point. I'm going to put a video out on this, but like I'm thinking of like the roadmap in terms of years and decades to strength and hypertrophy. And once you get to like phase 4, phase 5, phase 6 of that kind of like roadmap, once you're already strong, you're starting to reach your kind of genetic limit. Then machine-based isolation exercises are going to be much more appropriate and honestly much more effective because it's not going to induce as much fatigue. You can recover faster from them and all that kind of stuff. So that's my take on it. Will I ever get to a point where I replace percentages with bar velocity for my clients? For my clients, like most of my clients are high school kids, so no. I mean, we're using the OVR device with them, but most of it is just like, I'm just kind of looking at the data. Honestly, dude, the most effective implementation for the OVR, for the velocity-based training, is to gauge RIR. That is the most effective way to use it, in my opinion, until someone changes my mind. But will I ever replace percentages with velocity? No, because you can't prescribe velocity. You don't know what the velocity is until they finish their rep. So I think I've talked about this before, but like if you prescribe a velocity at, let's just say 0.5 to 0.6, that's your like meters per second range. And then you have someone start their first working set and they move it at 0.72. Well, you haven't like achieved the desired stimulus you're looking to achieve. But now they've accrued some fatigue, so the appropriate weight for their subsequent set probably isn't as high as you wanted it to be. And then this could also go in the opposite direction. If they moved it at 0.4, now you're like, shit, we just loaded them way too heavy. Now you have to kind of change your plan. So like, that's why I would say no. I could be convinced to change my answer, but that's kind of where I'm at right now. Unless you're like really in tune with how much weight to use. See the velocity replaces RPE. It replaces the perceived effort because that's the objective measure for your effort. So like the external load is the weight on the bar. The velocity of the load, the velocity of the exercise, the velocity of the movement, that's your internal load regardless of your subjective RPE. So it's not something you can prescribe, it's something that describes your effort, if that makes sense. I gotta do my next set though. The velocity-based training, I saw a few questions about OVR and like what I'm looking at on my screen and when I actually look at the screen halfway through the set. I'm looking at the velocity and to see how it does correspond with how I felt that rep went. So like that last rep was 0.42 meters per second. In my head, I'm like, if I get to 0.4, I'm cutting the set off. So I'm using it as my RIR. That's what I'm looking for. So I could have done, according to that speed, I could have done 2, maybe 3 more on the front squat. But I'm trying to not blow my load so I can finish the giant set with good quality reps and accrue the amount of reps I want to accrue. 0.41, right where I wanted to be. So if I were to prescribe 0.41, I mean, I've already done a bunch of sets, but if I were to, so I kind of know what the load is based on the previous sets, but if I were to prescribe, hey, I want 0.41 meters per second, now if I moved it at 0.47, you're kind of in this like gray area. Do I want to use this weight? Do I want to add a little bit? How much should I do? And if I was at 0.36, then do I say, shit, I probably should take a little bit off, but now what if I take a little bit off and it's at 0.45? Like, you don't really have a very good way of determining how much volume you should do, how many reps you should do at the weight, because you're not going to be exactly precise with the speed that you wanted to prescribe, if that makes any sense. So anyways, I'm going to move on to close grip bench, and let's go. Okay, first set coming up for close grip bench press. I got 331 on the bar. So the past 3 sessions for my first set, I've been doing 330, and so I need to add some weight. So I'm going to put these little half pound plates on the bar to make it 331. Only got 5, so I'm stopping myself at 1 to 2 RIR. Fuck. I'll take some weight off for set 2. Sometimes you just don't have it. It's a good lesson that you know you're not going to progress. You're going to have ups and downs in training, and with like your body composition, your weight's going to go up and down. Your training progress is going to stall out, go up and down. So that's all right. I'm only 32 years old. I'm going to be training my entire life. Almost forgot, guys, before I answer the next question, Barbell apparel gear. This is like a t-shirt, a training shirt. It's almost like a pump cover. It fits really nice. It's kind of loose, but at the same time, it fits well and kind of tight. It's kind of this weird, really comfortable, like tight fitting, but also loose t-shirt. So these are really nice. And then you guys see me wear the joggers all the time. They have a deal if you order something, or if you place an order for $99 or more, you get free shipping. So got to give my Barbell apparel plug in there. Check it out. Hit the link in the description. You guys know what to do. High quality clothes. All right, what is my go-to pre-workout meal? I don't really have a go-to pre-workout meal. Yeah, I don't really have one. I do like to just have a Bang Energy or something like that. I do like a piece of toast. I do like to have some protein in me, eggs. This all depends on when I'm training in the day. So like today, I'm on spring break at UND right now, so I'm not teaching it all this week. I did have clients this morning, so I woke up. I had my like 40 grams of protein in the morning. And then I guess about 30 minutes before I trained, I had 2 pieces of toast with a shake, and I feel pretty good going into the session. I do like yogurt, but I try not to eat anything 30 minutes or closer to the meal, or to the training session. So 30 minutes or beyond, so like 30 to 60 minutes is good. 30 minutes or less, I don't really like eating because I feel kind of bloated, I guess. It depends also what I've eaten, but like 2 pieces of toast today with a shake, about a little longer than 30 minutes before I came in here, I feel really good. So there's my answer to that. Do I have a favorite variation for someone to train squats with lower back pain? Yeah, I think so. Assuming like back squatting is kind of your default squat variation, putting the load in an anterior position, so front squat, Zercher squat, usually is gonna help that person out a little bit. I would say Zercher squats would be my go-to. So last week I Zercher squatted. I was supposed to back squat off the pins. My lower back was really fatigued. I tweaked it a little bit from deadlifting a couple days before then. I really didn't want to back squat just because my lower back was tightening up on me. It still kind of feels that way from last week. So hopefully that goes away by Wednesday this week. But I Zercher squatted, felt no issue with my lower back. Some people will say box squats. I think box squats are really hit and miss. Oh, belt squat. Belt squat would be like the number one thing if you don't want to load their spine. Belt squat if you have access to that. So here would be my ranking. Belt squat number 1, Zercher squat number 2, front squat number 3. Box squats is kind of a hit or miss kind of thing. Bars on their back, they still have to rock forward, and that rock forward is going to change the angle of their back. It's going to place a lot of stress on their erectors. It's going to place a lot of stress on their lower back. Some people might not respond well to it, so yeah, belt squat, Zercher squat, front squat. Box squats is kind of a hit or miss kind of thing. Okay, last set of bench here. Okay, before I get on to my snatch grip deads, I got one more question I want to answer. How would I program for a client who doesn't have an off season? So someone who plays sports year round. I have plenty of clients who do this. A lot of basketball players play AAU basketball. They play that all year round. Hockey up in like Minnesota, North Dakota, that's pretty common too. But it would just be concurrent training, dude. You have certain physiological traits or physiological qualities that you want to train at a minimum frequency, and you could just use a weekly layout as an example. So you want to train speed at least one, I would say once a week, hopefully twice a week if you can during season, if that's possible. From a bird's eye view, you have all of these different physiological qualities that you want to train, you want to stimulate on some level, and then depending on what their season looks like, you dial up one, but then you have to turn the dial down on another. So a really good framework is just do some sort of speed training once a week, do some sort of jump training once a week, do some sort of plyometrics, because plyos are different than jump training, once a week. Strength train the upper body and the lower body at least twice a week, and you're probably in a good situation. And then depending on the sport, if they need some extra aerobic conditioning or even anaerobic conditioning, give them that too. So just be concurrent training. It's not really something you need to overthink. I actually think programming in season is a lot easier than the off season, because in the off season, I feel like clients are going to be looking for something a little bit more, for lack of a better term, excessive and kind of fancy in the way you're programming for them. So it's really simple, just simple stuff, man. Hopefully that answers your question. I don't know if I did a very good job answering it, but I got to get my snatch grip deads in. That's all I got, guys. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it.